Now, moving on, Pakistan was meant to be taking part in a conference in Bonn this week about bringing security and stability to Afghanistan. They pulled out of the conference over the NATO raid. Pakistan was seen as an important partner in bringing the Pakistan-based members of the Taliban to the negotiating table to help forge a political solution for Afghanistan. How important was Pakistan's absence?
Well, I think that any solution from 2014 onwards to Afghanistan has to absolutely include Pakistan. It comes down, I suppose, a strategic perspective to Pakistan's general, certainly among the military and intelligence figures, of strategic depth into Afghanistan. And what's happened as a result of the NATO raid last week that killed those Pakistani military is that because Pakistan knows that the US and its allies are relying on it to be involved in these negotiations on Afghanistan's future, it knows that it has the power, and it's very much a position of posturing whereby it pulls out of a conference, probably with, I would imagine, other motivations in mind, that it can perhaps draw more aid to get it back involved in these conferences, simply because it's such a crucial part of it. And the US, Afghanistan, and all of the other countries and powers that are involved in this conference know that without Pakistan's involvement in Afghanistan, it's going to be very difficult for any long-standing political settlement and for the security, not just in Pakistan and Afghanistan, but across South Asia as a whole.
And do you have a view on that, Tom?
Yeah, I have a slightly different view. I think first we have to define Pakistan's relationship with the Afghan insurgents before we can quantify how much influence they have. Yes, there is certainly a strong relationship between the intelligence agencies and the Haqqani network, but that is defined to the coincidence of mutual interest. Where the interest strays, the Haqqani network will do what it wants. Pakistan has less influence over Mullah Omar's main faction of the Taliban, and there have been some very visible signs of that, with Pakistan detaining leading members of the so-called Quetta Shura in various parts of Pakistan over the last 3 years, 4 of their main people, in fact. I would take the view that the Pakistani view of Afghanistan is not restricted by the war on terror. There is a larger strategic play emerging from Afghanistan into continental Asia, where their countries are aligning themselves against each other in different alliances. You have the United States. It is perceived as being supported by India, though I wouldn't agree with that totally. I would even drag Australia into that equation. On the other hand, you have Pakistan, China, Iran, which has a massive border with Afghanistan, and Russia. And at the Istanbul conference in early November, where the tone for the Bonn conference was supposed to be set, these countries joined forces and blocked a US proposal for a multilateral border monitoring mechanism for Afghanistan. And I think that reflects not the war on terror, but the post-2014 strategic interest of these nations.
James, Pakistan closed down some of the US supply routes into Afghanistan over the NATO raid. Is this pushing Washington into a corner?
Again, the US has been very aware that the relationship with Pakistan has been difficult, to put it mildly, over recent years, and it has been seeking alternative routes for supplies to NATO and ISAF forces in Afghanistan. So while it's very significant, I think, according to what I've read at least, it's something in the realm of 40% of supplies go through these two border crossings into Afghanistan. It is able to do through other routes the rest of the 60%. So obviously it's significant, but at the same time it's something I think that the US has been preparing for and trying to adapt for going forward.
And bringing us forward to one of the most recent events, there was an attack on a Shia festival in Afghanistan in which more than 50 people have been killed, according to the latest reports. Hamid Karzai has come out and spoken about the militants being based in Pakistan and called for justice. Tom, how does that make officials in Pakistan feel?
as far as Pakistanis are concerned, the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi al-Alami, who actually claimed this attack, are as big an enemy of Pakistan and its people as any single terrorist group. This is the group that in 2009 laid siege to the army headquarters in Rawalpindi. The same month, that November 2009, its gunmen stormed a mosque on the Friday congregational prayer and gunned down murdered army officers and their children. A very interesting point is the Taliban's denial of any involvement in this particular attack. I've been probing my militant sources all day, and there is indeed a large amount of confusion within the Afghan Taliban on this attack, because they certainly see it as something which goes against their interests, because Afghanistan's civil war has been about ethnic hatred, not about sectarian.
Now, that's an important point, James. It's being described as a sectarian attack, perhaps one of the first sectarian attacks to take place in Afghanistan. Does this mean that we can expect to see the same kind of deterioration there that we have seen in Pakistan and also in Iraq?
Well, it's obviously the first, or it certainly sets a precedent in terms of sectarian attacks, but extrapolating that it's going to go down the same route is Iraq and elsewhere is difficult at this stage. One thing that I would like to add is that one of the things that we've been noting in particular with our analysis of terrorist groups operating across Pakistan and into Afghanistan is that Lashkar-e-Jhangvi and subsections have been operating in collaboration with the TTP, Al-Qaeda and others. So I suppose going back to the point that Tom made earlier, I think that's a very good point. These are enemies of Pakistan, the state, and intelligence and military itself. So it's very difficult in terms of laying blame Pakistan or the government or anything like that. So to answer your original question, it's very difficult to say what's going to happen going forward. It's obviously very concerning. Lashkar-e-Jhangvi in collaboration with these other groups is obviously incredibly powerful. Lashkar-e-Jhangvi itself has been blamed by the Pakistani government for the attack against the Marriott Hotel in Islamabad in 2008 and a range of other attacks. So, it certainly is potential there for this to affect Afghanistan, but whether or not it's going to come to that, I would imagine will take into account other things that are going on with regard to political settlement in Afghanistan.
I was joined there by James Blake, an intelligence analyst for the Risk Advisory Group, and over the phone from Islamabad by Tom Hussain, a freelance journalist based in Pakistan.